Blog Talk Radio.
Here we go with the main event of the evening. Ladies and gentlemen in attendance, boxing fans joining us around the world. It's time for the bout you've all been waiting for. Finally, it is showtime.
Here, man, we dedicate our life to this sport. We do thousands of sit-ups in camp. We run hundreds of miles, for the ones that take it serious. And we just dedicate ourselves fully to our craft, man. We watch tape. We have attitude. We moving, and we go into that fight just to land on the line.
Boxing fans, this is the Rope-A-Dope Radio Podcast. I am your host, Chris Carlson. We are live on a Tuesday, starting a little bit later than we have of late, but hey, things happen, right? We are back. Hopefully everybody's doing about the same or better than they were last week. And just first and foremost, I really appreciate all the listeners going on right now. I mean, in general, before this, I obviously did. But right now, when, there's not a lot of content coming out like it normally did, if you look at some of these, just in general, podcasts from all, walks of life, but a lot of times sports, and as far as, new content and whatnot. So, like I said, I really appreciate people taking time out, of their lives right now and listening to the podcast. So I really appreciate that. Just want to say that right off the bat because, there's a lot going on, obviously, and I really appreciate being able to be that distraction for you. I'm a person who right now I'm unemployed because I do work, I have a bar that I get a lot of my income from, but I'm okay. There's a lot of people in a lot worse shape out there. And like I said, I just appreciate people listening right now. There's a lot going on out there, but, there may not be a lot. Well, there isn't. There isn't stuff going on inside the ring. However, outside the ring, especially when you're talking combat sports, and I think you know where I'm going with this, there's a lot going on. Whether it's DAZN, and, some of the things going on with them right now, they have actually refused right now to pay their rights fees that are due to some of these leagues that they broadcast. They brought the broadcast rights. We'll talk a little bit about that. Obviously, they're not a television network. They are a platform, a different platform, especially the U.S. When it's really, Bellator is on there, no doubt about it, but it's really boxing is the bread and butter, obviously. Seen a lot of tweets talking about, it shouldn't have just been boxing. They should have had a boxing TV show and all that, and the need now for shoulder programming. I did read that during my boxing Twitter segment. I read that tweet late in the show. And it is just hilarious about DAZN. It's not a negative thing about DAZN. It's just an ignorance about everything. I'll talk a little bit about that. But we're going to talk about, what they've decided to do. They keep charging the customer. They have an archive of boxing that's pretty decent. They do have archive of MMA for Bellator. But they don't have a lot of content at all. They're still charging full price. But the big thing is the rights fees. They are refusing the rights fees. And is there going to be some consequence when it comes to that moving, forward, whether it's with the actual companies right now, like a lawsuit or whatever, or is that in the contract, a natural disaster type, contract detail? But really, what is it going to mean moving forward when they go to try to purchase more rights in the U.S. by more popular sports. Is that going to potentially cause a problem? They're in a tight spot. Can they survive this wave? We'll talk about that. Talk about the UFC as well. They got this Fight Island idea, which isn't totally shocking. International waters was something that boxing back in the day, especially like on the river, Mississippi River, that they would get away with. They wouldn't have to be, sanctioned and whatnot. Well, the UFC is coming up with an idea, and it sounds like it's going to be on tribal land, Native American land here in the States, where obviously the jurisdiction is totally different, but also it sounds like they're closing in on a deal on what I believe is renting an island. I don't know if they're purchasing it or they're just renting it, but I do have my thoughts on that, but also some audio as well on that particular item. We talked about last week, and if you didn't hear, we had Jamal James on. Some people had commented saying they liked that interview. By the way, I will do some more interviews in the future, whether it's with a boxer or with a manager or behind the scenes someone. We're gonna talk a little bit about that, or have that, I should say, in the coming weeks. So keep an eye out for that. Also, on archive, chunk of years ago, maybe 2010-ish to 2013, 14, we were fairly heavy in the interview game. So if you're, wanting to listen to some interviews from the past, just archive them. They're right there. They're easy accessible. We have a ton of interviews, whether it's Bernard Hopkins, whether it was an exclusive with Floyd Mayweather through Casino. He had an exclusive with Mayweather on his website and on his YouTube page, obviously. But we were the first one to have him on a podcast back then. I mean, Mauricio Solomon, we had a really good interview with. There's a ton of fighters. Paulie Malignaggi and DiBella going crazy at each other. There's a lot of interviews, and you never know. If this thing keeps going for months and months, some people have come by and with an idea of, hey, you should, maybe you should play some old school throwback editions, whether it's interviews or post-fight or something like that. I know, God, who the hell was that? Was it Cheap Seats or who the hell? Someone, I think that's who it was. God, I can't remember. Well, shouts out to that show, by the way. But pretty sure that they just did an old school. I think it was Marquez Pacquiao too. So if you guys want me to show, pop on some interviews in general, let me know. Maybe we can do that. I mean, I have some interviews that I can just play in general and do the show, or we could just have a throwback episode and I could still give you a blend of brand new content or, some old school flashbacks too. So expect the unexpected, because that's kind of what's going on. But I do think it's important to give you guys new content, new topics, current topics. And like I said, last week, we talked about this UFC Fight Island, talked about how combat sports does have an advantage because it's not a league per se, and there's a lot less people making the decision, obviously. Now, sure, sponsors play a part in there, but sponsors probably want as much visibility as they could get right now. So I brought that topic up last week about Endeavor, the parent company for UFC. And I'm not going to rehash that and go over that article that was written by Bloody Elbow and a lot of other sources. Basically, they, gave out $300 million worth of payback dividends. And it was basically to kind of cool off and calm down the investors because the IPO didn't go through. And long story short, UFC has a cash flow issue. And part of the acquisition by Endeavor for UFC was cash flow. Like I said, I'm not going to go over crazy detail like I did, way more in depth last week. If you want to go listen to that, that's cool. That's why they're desperate to keep events going. And literally a week later, here we are. UFC is going to have international fights on an island, and then in tribal land, it sounds like. So we're going to talk about that. Like I said, we're going to talk about the DAZN consequences, potential consequences moving forward, trying to purchase other rights fees from their refusal to pay the rights fees. And that is like not something you hear too much at all, especially in the U.S. So that's why I bring it up. Like, I wonder if, people are going to remember that in the back of their head. Like, okay, but you did actually not pay your rights fees. So we're going to jump into a variety of stuff. There's also a little Joy Spence discussion from some audio from an interview I believe he did on Fight Hype and a variety of other sources after that. But Fight Hype came up with it originally from what I remember. This Glovegate thing I haven't touched in quite a while. I've already given my take on it. But I think the interview's worth it just because he has experience in Michigan as an amateur dealing with some fighters. He fought a fighter with his glove kind of weirdly, strangely put on. And also he goes on to speak about how trainers, he saw firsthand trainers actually telling their fighters how to put on a glove a certain way. Like I said, I'm not into just throwing out clickbait conspiracy stuff. I've already covered a lot of my thoughts on that. But I think it's a worthy interview to touch upon. And there's some other news out there. Maybe I'll read some more boxing Twitter tweets. That's starting to become a popular segment. I love it. Sometimes you got to do it to make yourself laugh. You know what I mean? Because some of these tweets, you're like, dude, what are you even talking about? But my favorite one last week was at the end of the show. And it was just that whole, DAZN thing. That this dude was actually getting pissed because he doesn't want to watch boxing on YouTube because it's, the 240p or whatever he kept saying. And basically saying, it's not a good quality. I mean, ESPN Plus has a lot of quality right now on their old fights. But it was just funny. Like, he had this tweet that basically, like, made no sense at all. And it was crazy. It was just like, what the hell are you talking about? It just, some of this stuff, you just can't make it up. That's why it's really just a fanboy or a hater or something out there where you're just like, dude, you are just lost beyond recognition. Like, you know what I mean? It's just like, wow, what are you talking about? He basically was like, and I'm trying to find the tweet there. Did I delete it from last week? I hope I did. But the tweet was basically saying, it was one of the best. It had to win maybe some of these awards for the tweeting, the best boxing Twitter tweet where you're just like, what are you talking about, dude? He was complaining. He's basically saying, I wish DAZN, and I'm trying to find it. I think I deleted it on accident. I wish DAZN would hurry up going global, basically. You know how they're going to launch in 200 countries or whatever. They're about to go global. And his thing was, I want them to go global so I can have some material, like archive material. It's like, dude, if they go global this week, what kind of archive material are they going to come up with? Like, because, he likes the quality. And by the way, it's not top of the line HD quality, just so you know. Yeah, it's better than some of the stuff on YouTube or Daily Motion sometimes, but you can get it just close sometimes. But yeah, this dude literally said, and I wanted to kind of verbatim say, read the tweet again because it was deep in the show and I didn't even think about that. I should have led with that, but this dude is so lost for DAZN. He's like, God, I wish DAZN would hurry up and go global so I can have some more boxing archive content. And it's like, dude, there's no boxing available. It doesn't exist. Why? How could they go global? They're not going to add anything to the actual archive to add the content. It's just like, dude, are you that lost into space that you literally thought that if they just go global, they're going to add brand new archive stuff? Like, it just, I must have deleted it because I read it and I didn't want to reread it. But, dude, like, I can't believe that that's what people actually said. So we will cover some of that. I'm just going to check a little bit longer. This tweet is just money, dude. And I'm pretty sure it's that same dude who does boxing scene forums, and he makes these posts. Oh, here we go. I found it. DAZN Global should launch sooner. Times like this, we need back catalog HD entertainment. You know, and this is from Young Business. PBC's on lean. That's his name. And I'm pretty sure I found this guy actually on Twitter, and then I noticed it was the same. I don't know if maybe someone on Twitter, because he's not called Young Business. Maybe it's him and he's got a different Twitter handle, or it's just someone that agrees with him. DAZN Global should launch sooner. Times like this, we need back catalog HD entertainment. Would be nice if DAZN Global already launched. Sorry. YouTube is too ghetto for my taste. I prefer HD back catalog of fights, which it's not 1000p, whatever it is. What is it, 1090 or whatever? It's not 1090p or whatever. It's not real HD on that, by the way. I prefer HD back catalog of fights, at least what they have available. Some old fights on YouTube are 250, 240. And this guy's not from the UK. He's not from the UK. I mean, at least on Twitter, maybe Young Business is from the UK, and that's what he meant by going global. But I wish DAZN Global would launch sooner. Times like this, we need back catalog. I prefer HD. It's not HD anyway. And like I said, this dude doesn't say he's from the UK. Maybe Young Business is from the UK. I don't know. But this shit is just fucking hilarious sometimes. It's just unbelievable. But anyway, I can understand if he's like, you said he was from the UK. You know what I mean? I get that. But yeah, so we're going to talk about a variety of stuff. Like I mentioned, whether DAZN's going to make it through this in the consequences from not paying rights fees for the future. We got to talk about this freaking Dana White. The fight is signed 100% on live ESPN somewhere on Earth. That's what he tweeted out not long ago. So yeah, by the way, if this is your first time listening to the Rope-A-Dope Radio podcast, welcome. Thanks for joining. You can find it right here on blogtalkradio.com/Rope-A-Dope Radio. Take a little sip of agua. It streams live at archives right here on blogtalkradio.com/Rope-A-Dope Radio. But you don't have to just download it from there. You can, or listen to it right there in the browser. You can find it everywhere, including Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Player FM, TuneIn, Spreaker, Stitcher, really across the board. We're also part of the Grueling Truth Sports Podcast Network, which can be found across the board, including Spotify. In fact, you could use your Siri or Alexa through TuneIn or Spotify and find the platform right there. While you're at it, why don't you head on over to thegruelingtruth.com. That's thegruelingtruth.com. They got a great sponsor over there, betnow.eu with the promo code TGT. That's thegruelingtruth.com. It's boxing, it's football, it's basketball, it's baseball, it's everything in between. And real quick, if you're thinking about cutting the cord or you have and you're not happy, there's a lot of stuff to watch right now, and it's not all just on Netflix. Here's something you could try. It's called AT&T TV Now. It's live streaming cable. I actually do it myself. It's not, I don't do it myself. I have it myself. I'm a client. 7-day free trial is available. There's no annual contracts. The plans start as low as $60 a month. You could stream it anywhere. They do have the cloud DVR. And right now, $11 for Showtime. I know it's not boxing yet, but when it comes back on, although boxing, by the way, every Friday I'm going to tell you about that. On Fridays, they're going to show classic fights. So you got to be on the lookout on Showtime. So it's called AT&T TV now. It's live streaming cable. Now, if you're in a part of the country or a part of your state that, you know, the internet's hit or miss, right? We've been hearing about all these, you know, G5 conspiracy stuff. But there are just parts of the country where the internet sucks. And it's one thing to be on Netflix or Amazon and stream archive stuff, but when you live stream, that's going to be different. So for those who have crappy internet who feel like they can't do the AT&T TV Now live stream, they do have a platform that's growing. It's called AT&T TV. So it's a cable platform, right? It's here in Minneapolis, Minnesota. It's in New York, parts of Florida, Texas, California, all the way up to Seattle, other places in the Midwest like Seattle or St. Louis. Basically, you just Google it, put your area code in there, see if you can get AT&T TV. Otherwise, AT&T TV Now. Sorry, I've been actually dodging the hiccups. I've had them, and I've been trying to take little pauses. So that's why it's a little weird right now. I don't know if you guys noticed that. But we'll just lead with UFC Fight Island, okay? You know, there was a tweet going out that Khabib, Russia gave him, you know, there was a fake tweet from Ari. It wasn't Ari, but, you know, it was a fake one saying, breaking news, Dana White and Vladimir Putin have reached an agreement on travel arrangements for UFC lightweight champion Khabib. And he will fight Ferguson. And it's on. And, well, Ferguson's still fighting. Not going to be what you think. It is not going to be that same thing. That's not happening. However, they're still going to do a $65 pay-per-view if you have ESPN Plus. You know, this thing is on. It is on. And Dana White, like I mentioned, the fight is signed in 100% on live ESPN somewhere on Earth, April 18th pay-per-view. And it's funny because he says on ESPN, it's like, well, I mean, if you want to get technical, Dana, it's not on ESPN. Although I think that would get a big rating right now, dude. I really do. But yeah, it's on pay-per-view, and I get it. You know, some people think this pay-per-view is going to go through the roof. Others think, you know, people don't have the money just yet. And I can see both sides of that, but it really doesn't matter because the deal that they have with ESPN to help grow that ESPN Plus, that's where it's all at. That's where it's at. But yeah, I mean, they basically, you know, and like I said, the reason why they're continuing this right now, it's not just because Trump wants to, open up the economy here soon, and Dana White's buddies with Trump, so we're going to open up the economy together. You know, he's been talking like all the combat sports, you know, media members are pussies, and, you know, to an extent, there are some guys that talk a big game but haven't even thrown a punch or played sports. But the whole point is, you know, he's just gung-ho. We're gung-ho. We're not going to shut down. We're not going to run from this, you know, all that. But really, it's a cash flow issue that UFC has. And like I mentioned earlier, it's from their parent company, Endeavor, which is William Morris Agency. It's a combination of a bunch of stuff. But as we know, they purchased them. I think they own over 50%. I think it's right there. The Fertitta brothers still have, I think, 50%. I'm not sure if it's exactly 50 or whatever, but the cash flow was big because Endeavor is, what is it, 4.7 billion, capital B, in debt, and they run they're not on their budget is over budget. They're losing $107 million a year right now, I think it is. I don't think that's a quarter. I think that's a year. But they're not running a positive net right now. They're not making they're creating a ton of revenue, but their profits aren't there. And the UFC, for a variety of reasons, was a good purchase for them on the surface, but the cash flow, that was huge. Well, they used $300 million to pay back these dividends to these celebrity investors in the UFC and Endeavor. And so they're all of a sudden short for cash. And the UFC doesn't have cash flow. Endeavor needs it. So they're desperate. And desperate times call for desperate measures. And that's what it is. That's basically what it is, dude. You know, he says he's really close to finishing a deal. You know, it's going to happen. You know, Trump was on with a bunch of sports commissioners and folks like that around different leagues. There was when I say on, like a phone conference. You know, the MLB is getting plans in place to maybe just be located in Arizona because there's a lot of spring training down there already. I think there's like 15 teams or so that do their spring training back there. You know, Florida and Arizona are big for this. But it sounds like within like a 50-mile radius, there's a bunch of ballparks. And so much like the NBA, talking about Las Vegas, they're trying to maybe think of an idea with no, you know, the 6 feet radius as far as people, you know, players being away from each other. They're maybe going to use the computer, the digital, you know, balls and strikes because of the 6 feet buffer. They basically are going to try to get they're just going to try to salvage the season. And you have a small preseason and go right into it, maybe start in late June, July. These are tentative plans. But they want to get everybody in one state, one location, so they can, you know, control the atmosphere a little bit better and do it all there and take away a lot of the travel out of it, just like the NBA talking about Vegas. Well, they do have some small gyms and small arenas in Vegas, in big arenas, but small ones too. They could set it up in like ballroom atmospheres. You know, there are I go there for the Christmas or the Thanksgiving tournaments for boxing once in a while. I'll, you know, make bets and watch the Thanksgiving college basketball tournaments and NBA and all that. And sometimes they have a local one at a smaller gym there. So basically, you know, rent out all these floors in these hotels in Vegas, get every team there, and they can bring their families potentially too. So if you're gone for 2 months or whatever, you're not just gone from your family. It's optional or whatever. So, and they would just be able to control, like I said, the environment, take the travel away from it, being able to check temperatures and give tests. And obviously we're short on tests now, but just think the last 3 weeks how many more tests we have. Now, we need to pick it up, no doubt about it, but bring that up because at the end of April, how many more tests will be produced? At the end of May, how many? You know, there's going to be a stockpile more. So that's what I'm saying. Maybe in July they could start being able to have more tests so the NBA and all these other leagues could have them for all their players. And obviously checking your temperature before the game, during the game, all after the game, that type of stuff. So I'm bringing this up because, like I said, this doesn't have anything to do with boxing per se when I bring up the Fight Island, but it does. Because what does this mean for boxing? I've always said that combat sports, MMA and boxing, and obviously it's a boxing show, have a chance to come back earlier than those other major sports. If you look at, you know, on hand, you could have less than 50 people. The big thing is having ambulance. Lou DiBella talked about this on a podcast not long ago. I've talked about this in the past too, that you need 2 ambulances on site. And if someone were to get hurt and you're bringing them to the hospital, are they going to be able to see a doctor? You know, there's a lot of things that these hospitals can't be jam-packed and overran, and you're thinking you're going to be able to do it. And boxing is under different jurisdiction than, you know, the freaking UFC. Even we talked about how the Ali Act, you know, how they're not under the Ali Act, so they get away with paying, or at least for now, for all these, you know, years, underpaying their fighters because they don't have to go under the Ali Act, which shows, it just gives more detail and information on each event. And like back in the day, not even back in the day, but how HBO would pay a promoter, and it allows the fighter to see how much money the event is going to, they feel like the revenue, the budget, how much money did you give to my promoter and how much money did I get out of that? And they didn't have to do that. So I'm trying to give you some light at the end of the tunnel. And maybe on tribal lands, much like it happened here, that last boxing event a couple of weeks ago on Showbox, that was on Native American land, tribal land. And could we get a scenario where we could start doing these on tribal land and just keep doing them at the same places so you do kind of, shrink that travel thing? I don't know. I mean, my biggest question about, the UFC Island is for the international events, which makes sense because it's going to be hard to get people in this country or fighters from here going to other countries, right? But if you just have it on this island, then it's different. They don't have to enter the U.S. or leave. Well, they'll have to leave the U.S., but it will be on a private jet or whatever. And I don't know. Like, one of my biggest things is, and then the tribal would be for the U.S. events, right? They haven't announced the tribal land yet. There are 8 states that haven't gone into total shelter shutdown. Alabama, I think Montana, Nebraska's partially, North and South Dakota, Wyoming. Is Idaho under it? I'm not sure, but I'm just listing some states that aren't in it. And maybe the government, the athletic, commission would okay that. But it does sound like athletic commissions around the country, even though maybe some of those states that haven't gone into lockdown, they're still locking it down for that because there's no gatherings of 50 or more or 10 or more, whichever you go by. But once you're on tribal land, though, you're out of their jurisdiction. So, let's put it this way. If main events are a smaller, and I'm not saying, main events are so small, right? They've been around for a while, I'm not ripping them. But let's just think of smaller promoters. I think smaller promoters may have a problem because if they go and do it on Native American land and then they come back to those commissions, those athletic state commissions, and they're like, hey, dude, you ran an event and we told you not to. I think they may have a problem there. But if you look at the UFC, I don't see Vegas and Nevada, I don't see California. I don't see these states denying UFC events or PBC or Top Rank or even because DAZN has Canelo or money behind them. I don't see those outfits getting, and those platforms, promotional companies, I don't see them having to deal major consequences with the athletic, departments or commissions, I should say, because those commissions need that revenue. Whereas if it's a really small promotional outfit and you're not even getting that much revenue anyway, maybe they would actually have a hearing and go out there and try to make it into a political thing and make it a press run so they look like they're doing something, Similar to a couple of years ago in New York, when they brought in those insurances and they upped the insurance because they had dropped the ball and got sued. And they basically tried to put it hurt some boxing events, a lot of them, and smaller, it didn't hurt UFC, but it hurt some smaller boxing events and MMA events because they couldn't afford the insurance. And forget affording the insurance. As it turns out, they were having problems finding an insurance company that would even agree to this because it was a lot of money to put an event on, but it was also a way to protect their, the athletic commission, the state athletic commission, from lawsuit, but also as a way that UFC kind of gerrymandered their way into it, with lobbying money and all that. They got into there and they had a way to kind of, once they got legal in New York, they had a way to try to make it a little. They're trying to monopolize it basically for a short amount of time. But this thing's going. It's a private island. They're securing it. Like I said, I don't know if it's rent. They're renting it, leasing it, I should say. They say a deal. So what's a deal mean? A deal, a broker deal to lease it for 2 months or buy it? I'm assuming it's a lease thing. I don't know. Basically, White stated that it's a venue on the island for 2 months, and they'll have events every single week. And this will include international fights too. So it's not just, maybe it won't be tribal land. Maybe it won't. Maybe it'll be all on this island. This seems to address the issue of certain travel restrictions. I really think this is showing their desperation, but I also think it's a great idea. I think it is showing their desperation. But here's a little bit of audio of White talking about it, okay? I'm going to play it now.
So this place where this fight's going to be on April 18th, I have locked up for 2 months. So I'm going to continue to pump fights out. I've also secured an island. I've got an island. The infrastructure is being built right now.
So when he's talking about this venue I got, that I believe that would be the tribal land. And he said I also have the island. So that article I read was a little misleading.
We're going to do all of our international fights on this island. So when April 18th, when we do this fight on April 18th, international and local, in the United States, we're going to start cranking. The UFC will be back up and running internationally and here in the States.
So April 18th, UFC 249. So literally April 25th, you could have an event.
We are. We're going back to back to back. We're getting back into our regular schedule. So we will have postponed 3 fights. We'll make all these fights up, and we'll be right back on schedule starting April 18th.
And are those cards already together, or is that those cards are under construction?
Under construction, yeah. We're working on them now.
How about transport? How are you planning on getting these fighters to your secret location?
So what we're going to do is we're going to get the fighters somewhere, and we're going to bring them to this location. They won't know where they're headed to.
Okay. Like maybe they'll collect geographically, like if some of them are closer.
Yeah, we're working on it. We're working on it right now. But there's going to be, definitely some planes involved and things like that, especially for this island when they pull off the island.
So there you have it. And, it's a variety of stuff that people are saying about Dana White on this one. One, he's got balls. 2, hey, man, he's boxing fan-wise, it's kind of like, hey, dude, this is possible. Maybe not for your run-of-the-mill, smaller, regional that covers mostly boxing promoters. There's only a couple that are like nationally and worldwide, right? So, I've heard Eddie Hearn come out and say he's against it and you're being overzealous and all that. But, not long ago, he said he already had backup plans, for closed-door boxing. Now, he also, was saying it was on the up and up because, well, of course it's on the up and up because they were okay with it. Like the commissions, the local stuff, they were fine with it because they hadn't shut it down. And the UK shut down a little bit later than some other places, obviously. But, it's like, wow, okay, so wonder if April, May goes by, could Al Heyman and Bob come together and rent that island after them? You know what I mean? Probably not. They probably want to keep it, but that idea, or like I said, on tribal land, on Native American land, I could see it working out because, like I said, I don't think the athletic state commissions, they need that revenue that boxing does create. Only, with the bigger shows, obviously. There were some people that messaged me and said, I'm a UFC hater for bringing up this cash flow thing. And I'm just telling you the facts, dude. I'm not a hater. I'm just telling you the facts. And even right now, I mean, Endeavor Here's a recent report, April 5th, 2020. UFC, full name UFC Holdings, LLC, which is a subsidiary of Endeavor Operating Company, LLC, has seen a S&P downgrade for both companies and its company and its parent's debt, as Forbes reported mid-March. According to the S&P, Endeavor and UFC have significant exposure to live events, entertainment, and content production, which is obviously true because if you're running an agency in the entertainment business and all these production companies and movie companies for shows and documentaries and films, they have all had to shut down. So the whole thing's shut down. And it says to go on content production, which are at risk of closure in the near term due to the spread of coronavirus. S&P placed all ratings of Endeavor and UFC, including the B issuer credit rating on Credit Watch, with negative implications. In other words, the junk bond ratings for both Endeavor and UFC could be lowered. S&P cited concerns over earnings before interest, taxes, and liquidity. They basically, to date, UFC management is holding off employee layoffs and even planning live events. And that's something I think is cool about UFC. They said they're going to pay them. They're going to pay them. You know what I mean? Nonetheless, we note that the 2026 term loan held by the only BDC with exposure, Oaktree Strategic Income, is trading at 12% discount. At the end of the year 2019, the $4.9 million in debt it's kind of screwed up. Hold on, I got to get that. It's kind of cut off. Was carried at par. So the downgrade and the latest valuation are enough for the BDC credit report to place UFC on the underperforming list. So we are initiating coverage with a corporate credit rating of 3. That means we still hopeful, that the full recovery is more likely than not, and keeps up from trying to estimate, what the loss is going to be. I'm just saying this is a real thing, dude. As we see, the BDC exposure is modest and income at risk even more. So given the UFC parent company has several $1 billion in debt, that may be just as well given that UFC could be impacted for many weeks to come, having to not do that. So I'm not just a hater of UFC, dude. You know what I mean? That's just the bottom line. I mean, last fall, that IPO, they pulled it. That Aria dude who owns a big chunk of it, or, whatever, they freaking, it's a real thing. I'm not just saying he's out there. Like, I'm not just, UFC, Dana White, he supports Trump, so screw that. I'm an independent, so I'm not going to. No, it has nothing to do with that, dude. It has nothing to do with that. Plenty of people that are, going out against it, making a big, stink about it, saying this is just basically disrespectful. Like, dude, what are you doing? You know what I mean? What are you guys doing? And I'm not quite there. I do wonder, of course, about the safety of the whole thing, and also the product. Like, the product to me, I don't know. How can you expect the product to be top notch when you're not going to have a normal training camp? Because there are private gyms open for guys to train, but then you need sparring partners, and you can only have so many people inside of a gym, even if it is private. So legally, anyway. So, like, are they all going to go to Montana and train or something so they can have then all the training? What are you going to map out 2 hours in all these gyms Okay, this guy can come in for 2 hours, get his shit done. This guy can come in for 2 hours. This girl can come in for, this woman can, you know what I mean? Like, how are you going to have these people fully trained and ready to go? I realize that UFC camps are not always the 8-week, 10-week thing that you get boxing, but still, there's still something to be said about that. So I wonder what the product is going to look like. You know what I mean? I wonder what the product's going to look like. That's all. I'm not going to keep talking about this Endeavor thing. If you want more detail on their issues right now, you can listen to the next one. I don't want to bore my audience too much on rehashing all this stuff, but it's a real thing. And I mean, they're renting or leasing or buying a freaking island. So there's desperations here, but also with UFC, much like if boxing could get up back on TV, I gotta say, man, this is a good time for the UFC. You know, the ESPN ratings would probably be bigger than they are. Even the ESPN Plus signups could be bigger than they are. I don't know how they're going to do on pay-per-view, but like I said, because of the ESPN Plus branding and the growth they want there, that was part of the UFC deal. It's great for for ESPN because they know they're going to get signups, and also, you know, it's great for the UFC because they know their pay-per-view numbers are going to go down a touch, and I've heard up to 20-25%. Even before this coronavirus, just because you're adding another step that people have to do rather than just pushing a button on their cable stuff. You know what I mean? And that adds up, but they're making up the balance and even more sometimes. So basically, UFC just has to put on events, and ESPN, which is owned by Disney, they're going to keep the money train going, which it will help Endeavor in general. And UFC and all that. So, but the fact that they could somewhat grow the sport in a sense, especially if they put it on, ESPN, but they could get the live sporting people are fiending for it, obviously. So I do think I'm really interested to see how this goes. And now ESPN is going to have some fights to preview, not this week, but next week. They're going to have recap. They're going to have, you know what I mean? There's a lot of content that can surround, and then it just even if it's filler, it's good. You know what I mean? So that's that. UFC Fight Island. Could there be an Al Heyman, a DAZN with those deep pockets? I don't know. I know boxing, as far as, they are under different rules. That's what I do know. We will see if this freaking comes out of it or what comes out of this stuff, man. This is really interesting, though. This is really interesting. And they John Nash is a good guy to, follow this stuff. And that's where that article came from that I just read about the credit report. And some people are like, hey, wonder if Endeavor were to go bankrupt right now, could the Fertittas come in there and make some money, buy some of the company back, at a lower rate or whatever. But he responded saying best bet seems to be the other owners would force Endeavor to split them off and take it publicly. In which case the Fertittas could still buy shares, potentially enough to give them majority control again, so they do not have majority control. I didn't think they did, but I was kind of stuck in there going, I don't think so. I'm not quite sure. But yeah, it's popping off, dude. It is happening. So you got to give them some respect on that, dude. I'll give them respect on that. I'm not going to just sit there and be like, oh, it is a big risk. Of course, it's a big risk, but it could pay off. It could pay off. I mean, ESPN, like I said, the coverage, they got to be just happy with the fucking coverage. You know what I mean? If anything else, just the coverage alone would be like, hey, we have content. We have content coming in. So let's talk a little bit about DAZN. Now, DAZN, in this SI.com John Wall Street edition, the sports business thing, this is his headline: DAZN in trouble? ? The provider tells league partners it's not paying rights fees during the hiatus because there's no live sports. These dates are coming up, the dates are starting to come up, and where they owe these rights fees. But DAZN's like, well, dude, we're not going to pay you rights fees right now because there's nothing there. You're not giving us anything, There's nothing there, So why are we going to pay you guys this huge rights fees? Which I get. I do understand that. There is some of this landlord stuff in a sense too when it comes to this, right? And what I mean is some landlords are still getting rent, from their, from their renters, right? But then they're also freaking asking from their lenders. They're literally asking lenders to go easy on me. Hold on, like I don't want to pay you what I owe for this building, but I'm going to collect rent. So right now, DAZN's not, as far as I know today, as of today, DAZN's not offering. I was going to say a Fight Island. We can all go there and fight and watch fights. No, but they're not offering a free service right now. They're not offering anything like that, right? I mean, they're not. And I'm not saying whether they should or shouldn't, whatever, but they have archive fights on there that are pretty good. It's not like super deep, but it's pretty solid, right? Especially the last 10, 15 years or whatever. Really about early 2000s. So, yeah. So anyway, so they want us to pay them. Like the people that just paid the $100, they were getting, what was it, $833. That works out great. I was still on the grandfathered $999, and that was going to come to an end. And I just didn't want to pay $100 right now because wonder if it doesn't come back till October. It's like that's just a waste of $100. Like I have $100 to give, but why? You know what I mean? I'm unemployed. I don't know where certain industries will go. You never know. You have to kind of think ahead in some of its bag right now. But they do have, like I mentioned last week, they do have on the DAZN account, like .com DAZN, because I do it through my Roku. And I tried to put it on pause, but I could only go to, it sends you to my Roku, and then I cancel it, and it's right there. I just have to, reactivate it, but it'll be for $20 a month, which I don't want to do. When it's up and running, I'll just pay the $100 and it'll be over. But they're not offering a discount. I do like the pause thing because it's just easy. Pause it and you go back and you're good. But to me, it's like if you cancel it now and you paid the $100, you're getting screwed. So you might as well not cancel it because you've already paid your $100. You might as well get the content you want out of there. Maybe it's going to turn some people off. Maybe DAZN's going to have an issue, like a lot of industries. I don't know. But it's something in the U.S. that doesn't happen. These refusing to pay rights fees. And in the Sports Business Journal, it was reported there first. This is, like I said, that sports business John Wall Street thing through SI. He reported this is a little while ago, like a week ago. Tuesday morning, DAZN started to begin informing sports leagues and federations that it will not be paying rights fee payments as contracted for games that have been postponed or canceled or content that has not been delivered during the hiatus. The OTT service also told its league partners that payments owed for future games, seasons, will be deferred until a time frame for resuming play can be set. So basically, once we know you guys are coming back and when we know the actual date and it's actually happening, then we'll pay the rights fees. In a letter to employees, CEO Simon Denyer explaining that declining revenues resulting from sports shutdown is forcing the company to drastically reduce many elements of its cost base, obviously, including furloughing an unspecified number of employees. Unfortunately, a lot of those employees are going to get laid off. Oh, I wanted to mention this. I think I mentioned this 2 weeks ago, but I wanted to reiterate for anybody that knows a boxer out there, a manager listening, whatever, boxers are freelancers. Right now, a lot of boxers, not all of them, trainers, all sorts, you can get unemployment. Now, it's state to state, it's different. Sometimes it takes a little bit more time, right, and more detail to go through the runaround yellow tape. And obviously, it's hard to be calling unemployment right now because you get put on hold sometimes for so damn long, right? Or the website crashes or whatever, right? But I wanted to say that. Boxers, get your unemployment. Anyone around the managers, the blah, 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 you know what I mean? The trainers, you can get unemployment. Go out there and get it. I didn't mention that last week. I think I had previously. But anyway, the news comes less than 1 month after DAZN announced its plan to go, global in 200 plus countries and territories. At least one of DAZN league partners believes the sports-centric streaming service has taken a position they probably do not have the rights to legally defend. So let me repeat that. At least one DAZN's league partner. So it's an off-the-record source in a sense because they're not saying who it is. And this is the part of the article where it says Howie Long short. Taking a position that they probably do not have the right to legally defend. Someone well-informed of a major U.S. sports league's legal position said his or her league's attorneys maintain the company is responsible for making payments as scheduled. She made it a point to note that none of the league's other broadcast partners who have similar agreements have taken the same hardline approach, insisting they are entitled to forego the payments. Historically speaking, domestic media partners have honored their contractual obligations with U.S. pro sports leagues and continue to make payments as scheduled during work stoppages. If you think about strikes and lockouts, we've seen plenty of that. One high-profile sports media consultant explained that typically it's been a three-link value chain: distributor, channel, content provider, where risk is diversified and everyone is incentivized to work together because there's always next season. So basically, in those lockouts, we gotta get this figured out because we gotta get the shit going so we can get. In this case, however, DAZN, a standalone digital streaming platform, is both the producer of content as well as the distributor. So they've assumed more risk, which obviously that's very true. It's also likely that they have a specific remedies in the contracts with content owners for lost event inventory, meaning that an attempt to claim a force will probably be difficult. Another reason broadcast networks tend to honor contracts is because the effort needed to break a contract and the result blowback from doing so often does more material damage to the company than honoring or adjusting the agreement. Can we tweak the money for now and then you keep the contract going? And Chris Lencheski, a private equity executive and the former CEO of a commercial rights and analytics arm of Comcast, added that in his league experience, the leagues and their owners have long memories. These difficult situations often reveals the values In other words, if DAZN moves forward with this plan to stiff the same rights holders it relies on for programming, the company is planning its own funeral. Our media consultant source agreed. If you're a Tier 1 league, how can you partner with DAZN after they have already shown a willingness to break? There's no reason to believe any broadcasting companies will follow DAZN's lead. This guy went on to say most, if not all, of the North American networks are working under the presumption that at the same point the sports industry will come out of it, a temporary pause basically, while each is preparing for possibility of a new normal. The fucking article got cut off here. Hold on. They're doing it in tandem with their league partners to ensure that all parties make it through this situation. DAZN's decision to go another route indicates the privately held company may be having leverage and liquidity issues. The league insider spoke to the streaming service never approached his. Okay, the league insider we spoke to said the streaming service never approached his or her league about reworking its agreement, taking a position that the companies won't pay for games not played may obviously change DAZN's trajectory with the leagues. It also highly likely to accelerate churn and add unneeded difficulties to the company's future customer acquisition efforts. DAZN doesn't hold exclusive rights to the big wigs, of course. That won't be the case where the company is spending north of $1 billion. So, and we know that the gentleman or the man behind, I don't know if I can call him a gentleman, I'll just leave it there, but the guy behind the billionaire, I think he got it from oil and other places. I can't remember where he got it, but the billionaire, he was already getting sick of paying these rights fees, and he actually had he was looking for investors. He was gone Wall Street looking, hey, they were looking for $600 million of lending so you could get, 8% of the company or whatever, you know what I mean? And he was willing to sell off a little bit of stake in company just so he doesn't have to pay these rights fees. And remember, over a 5-year stretch, it's $6 billion. So you're talking $1.2 billion per year. And that's globally. But U.S.-wise, they haven't established themselves with a major sport yet. They've already dropped over $500 million earmarked minimum in the first chunk of time, they've been around. And like I said, this guy who sold off some technology that had to do with like analytics and betting, they sold that off, so that gave him money. And then he was looking to raise as much as $600 million. I don't know if that's going to equal $800 million or $1 billion right there, so they could put that money towards buying new stuff here. And the biggest one they were looking at is what DirecTV has right now, and that's the NFL package. And just like DirecTV, sometimes if you signed up to DirecTV, a new subscriber to it, you just get a whole season of the NFL package, including Red Zone, of course. And obviously with fantasy, going crazy like it has in the last 10, 15 years, the growth it's seen, clearly that package is valuable. But that's not going to be on the market till 2021, I think the end of 2021, if I remember correctly, or yeah, actually, I think it's this season and next season. I'm not quite sure on that one. I said that on some other show. I don't have the stats in front of me on that. But, would that be an issue for DAZN, moving forward? I mean, you're already going to have to bid potentially with Amazon and with Apple. Like, a lot of people think, oh, they got this billionaire, they'll be okay. I hear you, but there's companies, like, for instance, when you go on Amazon during the NFL season, they pay money to have a live game on there. And it's just on Amazon. It's not a live exclusive game. It's literally you could just stream it on Amazon. You also can get linked to that package, so you could hit the link that the hell am I trying to say? On Amazon, you hit the link there, and it sends you to be able to buy the package. So you can buy games on Amazon. They NBA package you can buy on there. So DAZN's gonna have some competition to even buy the NFL package. And this stuff, as we know, is super expensive. We're talking about a lot of money. I mean, it was $100 million a year just to get that MLB highlight show where they go into live games. It's kind of like the whip around that's on FS1, or was that on MLB? I can't remember. But just to go live looks, highlights, it was a show. I'm not saying it's bad or good, whatever, but that was $100 million a year just for the show, not for the rights for these games. So it was going to be tough to get a major sport on board in the U.S. for DAZN. We know that DAZN was having, some really good success in Japan, and they were having success in Italy because they had the rights fees for an Italian league there, and so soccer's really huge across the world, obviously football, and so I'm not ripping DAZN. This isn't like the UFC Endeavor thing last week where I was breaking down their business and their model and their shortcomings right now on their cash issue, their cash flow issue, which is a real thing. So I like DAZN. I'm a hardcore fight fan. I've supported DAZN. I waited the 6 or 7 months before I took any kind of hard line where a lot of people didn't, because it was very hit or miss and mediocre and kind of crappy until late last April. Remember, that's when it kicked in, and then obviously they closed last year, and they had a pretty damn good start. If you look at the number of fights they had on that were quality, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. So it's damn good, actually. And some of it's phenomenal, right? So I'm not ripping DAZN. I'm just saying right now, clearly, a lot of the stuff that they built with that fight season and Canelo fights, they've lost a lot of those subs. I mean, after a month after the night of fights, they lose subs regardless. Some people are just like, peace, I'm out. I just like Canelo, that's all I'm here for. Or I just like Kasai and Logan Paul, so that's all I was here for. Or I'm going to wait this month because I signed up for Canelo or whatever, or I signed up Kasai and Jake Paul, and now I'm going to wait to watch that Ruiz fight. Or maybe you kept with it for another month because you're a Canelo fan and you're like, hey, I want to see Ruiz Joshua, whatever the case may be. But they even admitted that the from 40 to 50% that they dropped that much, the following month because people, that's why Eddie Hearn said, hey, let's charge them 40 or 50 and they'll buy the 100, a month, because they said you have so many people drop it off, and that's a normal thing. You know what I mean? It is what it is. That's the problem when your content is based around boxing only. Yeah, Bellator, that does something, but not much. So my point is, right now, they've lost a ton of subs. So all that money they invested, all that money they have earmarked, a lot of the work they got to get to 800,000 or whatever they were at, whatever was their peak, at the end of the year, was it 800,000? Was it 850? Was it 900? Did they reach $1 million? We'll never know. Most sources put it right in that 800, 850 as far as peak. And you got to remember, it involved Canelo, and then there was signups for the Kasai, and then there was people that kept it and also just said, screw it, I'll do 100 because of that Ruiz fight. So they had that Mexican-American fan base that wanted to see their new star in Ruiz. And that's why the combination of all that really helped their sub rate. But you can't tell me that people are hanging around now. And some people, the way they bought their, 20, I don't think you can do a hold on $20 a month. So if you're a sub by or month by month sub, I think you just got to cancel it. Now I was a month by month, and the grandfather $9.99. That's the only reason why I didn't do the 100, like I mentioned, and it kind of allowed me to put it on hold. But it's kind of crazy because I'll go back to the $9.99, or some people were just getting charged $20 a month. They didn't, the grandfather. I never got an email about the grandfather, and maybe I could have sworn I had till April, but they were talking about, because I saw some people tweet this, and they had a screenshot, and they were talking about the grandfather date's over. It's going to be $20, not $9.99. So I mean, this is a big deal. This is a big deal. So will this hurt DAZN like that? You know what I mean? This is, I mean, just like that CEO, that DAZN, DAZN Group CEO, Simon Denyer, he said, like, this is the biggest disaster to hit the sports world in 75 years. What a world war was the other stuff, right? I mean, there wasn't that many bigger things than this, that's for sure. So I'm not saying I want them to go. Hell no. But you do run a risk with some of this stuff. You definitely do. And you wonder if they can survive, because that's a lot of money spent to lose a lot of subs. And people aren't going to be happy in general because you're not giving new content. Now, I won't, that's another hiccup. I won't go as far as other people in saying, like, you should have invested in all this other stuff. Like, I understand the shoulder programming thing, and I think that's legit to an extent. But a lot of that shoulder programming would have been done by now anyway. Because what are they going to shoulder program? There's no fights coming up, And you can only do so much filming and all sorts of other stuff right now just due to the lockdown. So some dude the other day was like, dude, they should have had a TV. They should have had a TV series. And it's like, they should have had a TV series. Like, so they're supposed to pay this. I mean, to get a quality TV series anyway, you'd have to pay to get the content. So what are you going to pay a studio to make content for you? Isn't the studio going to make their own content and want to sell it? So they were supposed to have a boxing themed TV series that was going to last for like 4 months. You see what I'm saying? Like, some of this stuff that people are tweeting right now is just far-fetched. It's kind of like, dude, what are you talking about, dude? So they were just supposed to, not instead of just, you relied on boxing only, is what this one dude tweeted. What do you mean boxing only? So they were supposed to spend all this money on a TV series? And that TV series may be over by now. So it wouldn't make any sense anyway. It just doesn't. Some of this stuff is people just complaining to complain. Because it's like, instead you just relied on boxing and not a boxing TV show. I can understand that shoulder programming needed to improve for DAZN. And when they had shoulder programming, it was pretty good. Some of it was pretty good. That one, was it One Night or whatever, that documentary, or I forgot what it was. The documentary about the actual night that, Ruiz upset AJ. That was a pretty good one. They had a lot of, it could have been super cheap to get all those, it takes money to get talent in there. So to me, I just think it's far-fetched to rip DAZN right now for not having a TV series. You know what I mean? And plus, they couldn't continue to film the damn series. And people were complaining enough about the fake YouTube fights. People would be like, I'd rather have them make, this fight than talk about, a freaking a TV series. You know what I mean? I think it's just a little to sit there and rip them and be like, yeah, now they're only, now they have to rely on just boxing only. Look at them now. I told them that they had to do a series. I mean, come on, dude. And who knows what, boxing series would, who knows? There was that boxing show a chunk of years ago that got canceled, and it was actually a decent show that got a little better as time went by, but some of these guys tweeting this shit, it's like, dude, are you kidding me? Like, come on, dude. Are you really going to hold them to they should have had a boxing series? Like, come on, dude. That's just, to me, it's just stupid, dude. And I responded to that dude on Twitter. He didn't have anything to say, dude. He never responded to me. I'm not saying but it's a big deal. Like, it is a big deal. And the whole rights fee things, when you're looking at, there was another one I think in the Washington Post on the sports entertainment business and how this is hard to figure out. You know what I mean? This is super. Obviously, like the week that's September 11th, the closure there. That's probably the closest thing before as far as a stop and play and broadcasting rights stuff and all this weird shit. Like I think I mentioned this on the show. If you look at missing out on the March Madness tournament, CBS and Turner, together they pay the NCAA $785 million a year to broadcast. And, a stunning 330, God damn it, it's all cut off. 330,000 per minute of game action, not including overtime. And Turner, includes TNT, TBS, and True TV. And CBS, that's not Turner, but they have 4 different channels. Now that the tournament is canceled, the networks won't get a cash refund. Most likely, they'll get their money back in other ways by a 1-year extension of current deal at no additional cost. But that means the networks will see a huge interruption in cash flow. Having paid out hundreds of millions of dollars, it's going to mess up. Coronavirus could cost the NBA $1 billion. You know what I mean? And this is real stuff here. So a 30-second spot in last year's final, Virginia and Texas Tech, watched by an average of 20 million viewers, it cost $1.5 million, a 30-second spot. So, I mean, this is a ton of money that's out there that is not fair right now. So, and there was another article that I read about Fox Sports, and this is on Barrett Sports Media. This is really interesting. The headline, Fox Sports letting advertising out of commitments. The companies that receive some leniency from the network are in the restaurant, automotive, and movie industries. According to the writers at 2 different publications, Fox Sports is trying to accommodate advertisers that purchase time to showcase their products during winter sports. The sports, the pandemic, blah, blah, blah. Fox has actually been willing to let those businesses out of their contracts. This is also part of that Oregon, that John Oran, the sports business, journal, spoke with executive vice president of sports sales, Seth Winter. And basically, like, we're not making them stay on the air. We're hearing that they want to be back in business, on air. They want their businesses to be restored, but we have to work with them, and that's what we're doing. So basically, they're offering potentially, goes on to say that they don't anticipate, he told her that Fox doesn't anticipate live games returning before the third quarter. Now, live games is kind of vague because Fox has once a week during the summer only, like late spring, summer, like in May, Fox has MLB. FS1 has a lot more MLB content. But they don't have anything to do with the NBA. They don't have anything to do with college basketball postseason beyond the conference tournaments. But that 3-week run of the NCAA tournament, Fox doesn't have the rights to that. But this is what they said. Seth Winter also spoke to Jeannie Pogge of Ad Age. He told her that Fox doesn't anticipate live games returning before the third quarter. When the games do come back, though, the network is confident. God damn it, this freaking thing cut off. I got to switch it here. When the games do come back, where was I? It's confident advertisers will be able to showcase their product of large audience, particularly if the late 2020, early 21 calendar are loaded with competitions. And you got to figure, yeah, if imagine the fall, with football starting up, college and pro, NBA still going on, golf tournaments, boxing. Like, there's a lot of stuff that Fox will have on, and all the CBS and all the ESPN, obviously. And there could be a week where you have the U.S. Open for tennis, Wimbledon, and a college football game. Like, the amount of programming, let's say it started in July, let's just say, which, if you look at it, July, August, September, that's the third quarter, right? So July, August, September, right in that area. That's what they're talking about. And they just think that they can make up for it because there's going to be so many more sports on. I think people will flee to sports once they're on, he goes on to say. And, basically they're talking about maybe, hey, you could purchase future stuff and we'll just roll it over. We'll roll it over when that sport comes back, or we'll give you extra inventory next year for the time being. So there's a lot of stuff, and that's why I'm bringing up the DAZN. I mean, DAZN, potentially it could hurt them long term. They weren't for sure. I'm talking DAZN USA, guys. Okay? I'm talking DAZN USA. DAZN in a lot of countries is doing great. DAZN in the UK, I think, will do great. Boxing, obviously, in the Sky Sports thing, how that works out with Matchroom and Eddie Hearn and Joshua and all that. Joshua would be huge for DAZN over there because everybody's so used to, buying pay-per-views, much like the Canelo thing over here. So I'm just saying DAZN had their work cut out for them, being that they've already have earmarked, without opponents, earmarked 5, and I say opponents for Canelo, and Golovkin and some of these other guys, and I mean high-priced, purses that you got to pay these guys to come over. They were already going to have a problem growing enough to where they could still keep being in boxing at this rate, let alone spending all this money and not getting the subs they thought, which is the case. And then they're trying to get the NFL package. Then they're trying to get maybe a package of games of MLB, whatever the case may be, NBA, whatever. Like, it was going to be tough for them to make it here anyway. When that Canelo and Jacobs, that got around 650,000 views, and they were touting that. It's like, dude, you only had 650,000, signups for Canelo with a $20 pay-per-view or an $8.33 a month pay-per-view that you could just get Canelo fights for the rest of the year. That it was going to be tough. I was hoping they succeed because I'm a boxing fan. And as long as they're giving us the content they gave us since last April, I'm on board. If it's the stuff that they came with like October-ish, I think it was September 30th or something like that, the date of when they had their launch here with Joshua and Povetkin, right? And if you look at that 7-month stretch or whatever till 2019 and April, it was pretty mediocre. If that's the case, then it's like, well, it's just another $10 I got to spend on something, blah, blah, blah. But if they give us the content, which it seemed like the next couple of years, based off who they have, they're going to give us that content, it was going to be tough enough. You have a guy like Ryan Garcia that could blossom into a superstar. That's signups. You put him on the month after Canelo, right? can Mikey Garcia and Pacquiao? That would be a big number of signups here because that's a pay-per-view fight, which would be for $20 or, the monthly thing. So I'm not saying this is going to happen, but there are consequences just for this coronavirus in general because they're so worried about subs where Fox and ESPN, boxing is not huge content for them as far as rights fees. That's why you see UFC get more, play and promo on ESPN over boxing because the amount of money they pay for it per year. It's pretty simple, So I'm just wondering, beyond boxing, can DAZN land a major sports right deal of some sort when they're doing things that normal networks that pay for this don't do it? Now, they're, like it said in that article, they're not a normal they are the distributor of the content, and then they got to pay. They're two of the three that they broke down, right? So they provide the content, and they just, they got to. It's a different ball game, dude. It is a different ball game. So, I don't know. The coronavirus could have hurt them in a major. Well, it hurt them no matter what because they've spent a ton of money. Forget about the earmark. They've spent a ton of marketing money and a ton of Canelo and Canelo opponents and Golovkin and Golovkin opponents. They spent a ton of money, and now their sub rate has dropped majorly. It had to. It had already dropped the last chunk of months waiting for the next Canelo fight, but now it's really going to drop. And that's what I'm saying. They're asking, like the landlord who owns a building, the landlord's asking their borrower, hey, can I get a break? I need a break on this month, turning around and asking the people that rent their building for money. Well, right now, DAZN's doing the same thing. They're telling the sports, it's not going to happen like that. It's not going to happen we're not going to pay you. But yet DAZN is having us still pay. Now, do they have content? Yes, it's archived content. Yes, they do. They do have some. ESPN Plus obviously has better sports content archive-wise in boxing because, they have the top rank, so you can go further in boxing archives. But there's also not as many, if we're being honest. So I don't know where that puts them, man. I really don't know. I don't know it, but I have seen a lot of people, for rightfully so right now, saying, hey, I haven't gotten an email saying they're going to slow down the pay or they're going to offer a discount or, and that's why I was letting as many people as I know about that hold button, that there is, in some accounts, you can put it on hold. The only thing is, when you come back, and here's an example. There's this Fernando dude on Twitter. He screenshot this. He said, hello, Fernando. Thanks for contacting DAZN. No, the grandfather plan of $9.99 expired on 3/25. I never got an email saying it, and that's bullshit. And it says going forward, the new rate will be $19.99. So instead of $10, you're getting $20, right? Okay, we know that, but you didn't actually email these people to say, hey, by the way, that shit's going up. I never got an email over that. But I did mention last week that there is a pause button. And in a sense, I have a pause button through my Roku because I can just go back to my Roku, hit a button, and it kicks back in. You don't have to put your card, you don't have to re-up. The problem is, what am I going to re-up for? When I hit that button, is it going to automatically charge $20? And do I have an option, to re-up for just $100 once you're up and running? That I don't know. Are they going to screw people just looking for a little extra money? You know what I mean? I don't know. I really don't know. That's something we're going to have to find out. So, yeah, that's that's about it. And I went under here, and it said, and I went to the actual DAZN.com, and it just, the features, under the features was like resetting your password, changing your email, updating the language preference, and canceling your sub. But when I hit that, it sent me to Roku because I had it through my Roku. So we'll see. We will see. How this approach goes. You know what I mean? So that's that. I'm not wishing ill will on DAZN. I'm just wondering if by not paying rights fees, if they're hurting themselves in the future. I think it's a fair question. Just like I wondered if the UFC was going to go through this plan, and if they are, that kind of shows some desperation in my eyes. And sure enough, they're going full force with them. But in the same breath, I'm letting you guys know, because that means potentially that boxing could be back earlier than other sports. That's just potential. I don't know that to be a 100% fact, okay? I'm just being honest. But I'm trying to give you guys a little light at the end of the tunnel and that type of thing. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I'm talking about. So anyway, I do have some boxing Twitter stuff, a tad bit of fight news I got. I got live texts last week. That's my chat, my text, right? About me talking about those young fighters. Remember I was talking about the young fighters talking trash without accomplishments? There's another layer of follow-up, and then there's another layer of new stuff where you're like, dude, you haven't accomplished anything. Calm down. And some people said I left Virgil Ortiz out, but he doesn't talk a bunch of stuff. And they reiterated after he talked stuff to Spence, because Spence in an interview mentioned that, as a kid, we're talking about when he's a kid, Ortiz was a crybaby around the gym. And Ortiz came back and was like, all I remember is you losing this fight. You were crying after that, And Spence came back and he's like, dude, I'm talking about when you're a kid. And, when you lose a fight, or when you lose a game or a fight or whatever, I don't mind when the athletes cry, because it shows they care. It shows they care. I understand people giving them shit. That's your own, that's your own agenda if you want, or that's your own, not agenda, but that's your thought process. Cool. But I like it when athletes cry, because it shows they give a shit. But some people thought I was leaving Virgil Ortiz out because I once said that he's my favorite youngster who has a lot of potential. Now his weight division is not going to be easy, obviously, and he has said I feel like I can beat everyone at that division. You give me a couple of years, I'm there. He said in 2 or 3 years I'm going to run the division. I mean, he's saying 2-3 years. He's not saying tomorrow. Some of these guys say they're the best pound for pound right now. So I understand some folks out there got a little mad. I'm just not going to go back-to-back shows because I'd have to retread minorly. But I do have some new stuff, some stuff where you're like, oh, that's what he was talking about, and clarifying some of my comments. But I'm not going to rehash something that deep that I talked. Actually, I shouldn't say that deep. But I barely even meant to, have it a long segment. And I kept getting texts, and I kept getting, you know what I mean? I knew I was going to get some heat for that. But, it is what it is. It is what it is. Maybe next week, if I get enough people DM me like, oh, you're going to duck that or whatever, maybe I'll do a segment next week, because I do have further detail that's new on it, not what I just said last week. I just don't want to rehash, because I've already had to rehash this UFC a little bit. I don't want to keep rehashing. I want to try to give you guys some new content, okay? Speaking of rehashing, it's not rehashing, it's a different take. So Joey Spencer did an interview with Fight Hype, and then he did an interview with some PBC fanboy channels and all that, whatever, right? And he made an interesting point that I thought was interesting enough to further the content or the detail on the Glovegate thing. I've already given my take. I'm not going to rehash that shit much, right? I'm not going to sit there and give you all my take. Yeah, the first fight's the biggest deal. The left glove, we all know something was fucked up with the left glove. He was having issue with it. It wasn't tied properly. Yada, yada, yada. Most of the weirdness on those videos were from the first fight. You know, the clothesline left hook that it looked like that I could understand why people thought he was hitting with the wrist. We've gone over that detail. Okay? But this is different detail about how you could use a dirty trick to put your glove on. And there is some context with this, and it is Joey Spencer talking about his time. He's from Michigan. He was born and raised in Michigan. He fought there as an amateur. He trained there, obviously, as an amateur a lot. And he fought throughout Michigan, throughout the country, throughout the world, sure. But I'm talking about he fought a kid that had his glove the way some people think can do your glove. And what I mean by is, of course, the fist in the wrist area. And we know how hard that would be to get in there and to get it past the referees and the commissions and all that, right? We understand that. The athletic commission, especially in Vegas on a big fight. Now, you could also make the big fight thing where it's a huge fight, but it's going to bring in revenue so they can, have a blind eye or whatever. But I'm not talking about that shit. Do you see a bump that looks to be maybe a thumb bone? Coming out during looking at the wrist in that first fight. Yeah, maybe not. I don't know. I talked about the wrap and all that shit, how some people call that the knuckle. Other people were saying, yeah, if you look at how he wraps, your palm actually does have some skin. And so, people are saying where your palm's supposed to be, they're saying that's the knuckle. Is that the palm, knuckle, blah, blah, blah. But here is FightHype.com. Here's some audio. I'm just going to let him say it and then move on. I'm not going to go into way detail. But I do think it's a legitimate entry into this, I guess you could say, trial, okay? And like I said, I'm not rehashing this for clickbait. I do not have the title with the clickbait, okay? Just listen to what he says, though. It is intriguing, okay?
I think it was Kenny. Right? The first one was Jack Reese, but I believe Kenny Bayless was the second one.
So I think that if anything, it was the ref's job to make sure that the gloves were on right. They obviously weren't, and not only that,
and obviously weren't was really from the first fight left glove. Clearly the thing was loose. Clearly the thing was not a normal glove you see. But that's the first fight anyway, just to clarify that.
Obviously, if people who say, that didn't play any part in it, it definitely played a part in it, 100%. He was hitting with the bare knuckle. I literally, you can see it in the video. But not only that, it's not that this.
Now listen to his story, okay? A lot of people are going to go, he was hitting the bare knuckle, I'm done. Just hear him out, okay? That's what you do with conspiracy. This is a G5, you got to hear people out a little bit and then move on. Well, you don't have to hear out everybody. But this is an interesting story because he fought someone with a glove like that. And he actually knows of a trainer. Just hear him.
Pulling that out of my rear, I'm not just saying, I believe that. It's my opinion. That is a real thing. And not only that, but he trained in Detroit for the early part of his career. I grew up in Michigan. I trained in Detroit.
So he wasn't in the Crunk camp for multiple years early on. He did spend some camps and a fair amount of time there. Just to clarify that, we're talking about Tyson Fury in Detroit at the Crunk gym.
Thing that Detroit guys would teach and do in the gym and even in sparring, but even in amateur fights, they would put the gloves on that way and they would leave them loose and leave them flappy and put the wrist on the knuckle on purpose, and they would actually teach you to do that. That's an old school trick that's been used in gyms in Michigan, at least, and maybe even more than that, probably in more cases that we even know of, for a long period of time. So that is something that he did. It's a tactic. It wasn't an accident. He did it on purpose. I'm not even going to say, look, I don't know where I stand on it. Like I said, just because I've been around it so much, I would never do it myself, and I never have. I never bought into it, but I was always aware of it because I knew that in the gyms they would do it. And I knew when I was fighting this Detroit guy, we had to pay close attention to the way he was wearing his gloves. And I have fought people, and the way we learned it is I fought a guy, I won't, nobody that anybody would know, but I was like maybe 12 years old, and I fought a guy who wore his gloves like that. And later on, we ended up, never thought anything of it, but I just remember, us watching the film and saying, what the heck is going on with that glove? And then being in another gym and then teaching and telling people to put their gloves on like that and saying, okay, that's what that guy was doing. And I still remember that to this day, and it's the first thing that I thought of.
And he said in other interviews that you could feel the difference. Now, this is just him talking, okay? That you could actually feel the difference.
And it just so happens, he grew up trained in these parts where I grew up training. So, or not grew up, but at the beginning of his career, he was here with Emmanuel Stewart. So it's definitely something that is a real thing, and you're definitely, when you do it, you're hitting, you're basically landing a shot with a bare fist. It's definitely changed the impact of the shot, and that's my take on it.
What is it like? Have you felt a shot from the gloves? Like, and what could you describe? What does it feel like? Obviously, the power difference from a kid to an adult different.
It just feels, it's a kid, but I do remember at that time, feeling like you definitely feel like you're getting hit with something harder than normal. You're getting hit with something harder than normal. It's like, well, you don't really put your finger on it, but you just know it to be true. And I can tell you that Wilder's face showed that he was getting hit something harder than normal too. And I remember people saying, showing a video of Fury hitting the pads with his gloves on loose like that. And they were like, see, he wasn't doing that just in the ring. He was doing it on the pads too. So he wasn't doing it on purpose, as that being like their argument for the fact that he didn't mean to do it. No, that he's still going to do it. You're hitting essentially with the bare part of your knuckle. You need to practice that way. So of course he would get on and he wouldn't keep the glove on the pads and then loosen it for the fight, because you have.
And I like, no matter how you feel about what he said, I do understand what he's saying though. You would have to practice with it because it'd be a weird thing. You know what I mean? I'm saying theoretically. So he literally says he fought a dude that he couldn't figure it out right away. They looked at the tape, and saw the glove is all messed up. Said it did feel a little different. And then he said when he was training that trainers would teach their fighters that. So, like I said, I'm not here to tell you how to think. That big, ever since the PBC started doing pay-per-views, a lot of people say, oh, that's not a worthy, I'm not, fuck pay-per-view, DAZN for life and all that. I've never told you which pay-per-views to buy and which don't, which not to. That type of thing. I just never, that's not my job to tell you what to watch. I mean, I shouldn't say that. What to put your money out to. Not, I tell you what to watch because, hey, make sure you watch this undercard fight, or this dude's under the radar. What I'm not saying that. I break down the schedule. I try to give you guys some pointers on who you should watch or whatever, or hey, somebody sent me this fight, check this fight out or whatever. So I'm not here to tell you how to think. It's interesting. It is interesting if a professional fighter who had a long amateur career, a fairly long amateur career, he said that they know how to do it. And, when you do look at how he threw those left hooks, it was weird. It was like he was hitting them on the ear. So I'm going to leave it at that. That's Joey Spencer's words, FightHype.com. It's actually an in-depth interview. So I'm not, like I said, I'm done. I'm done with it. You know what I mean? I'm not sitting there. And by the way, they're going to replay it again, but ESPN2 right now, or this run, I think since 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock on ESPN2, I think they had a 6 or 7 hour block of fights, just so you know. And a couple of things I'll talk about, then I'm going to shut this puppy down. Where is the, so where are the, okay, here we go. So Showtime starting Friday. Let me make sure the dates are right. Yep, the 10th. So the 10th, the 17th, the 10th, the 17th, and the 24th. They are going to show this Friday Diego Corrales versus Jose Luis Castillo 1 and 2. Then Paulie Ayala and Tapia, Johnny Tapia, the next week 1 and 2. And then the next week, so that was April 17th. Then the next Friday, April 24th, Lucas Matisse and John Molina, and that was a brawl. And then Mickey Bay and John Molina. Why don't I remember that fight? Oh, I do, because that's right. Mickey Bay was winning, outboxing him. And I remember Floyd was ringside and everything, and he got caught. That's right. That's right. I almost forgot about that. So anyway, Showtime, pretty sure they're going to run, ESPN2 is going to run this block again. I hate to tell you something that's going on right now. Hey, listen to the pod, but going on right now, it's like it's already probably done by now. Well, I think it's still going, actually. Yeah, it's actually right now, Holmes and Tyson are popping off, so to speak. Yeah, so it was Ali Foreman, Ali Frazier 3, Ali Leon Spix 2, Tyson Burbick, Tyson Holmes, Tyson versus Spinks, Tyson Douglas, and Holyfield Foreman. And that's tonight, so you can still watch it, for those who were listening live earlier and listen live right now. Tyson Douglas, I might have to mess with that one just for old time's sake. That Holyfield Foreman, dude, God, he took a lot of shots in that fight. So, I think I'm just going to shut it down with a little boxing Twitter. So Virgil Ortiz, the only crying I remember is when you didn't make it out of Dallas or the Nationals. And you were crying because he was all mad that he said, that stuff on camera. So this is what Spence said. No disrespect intended, my dude, but you did used to cry as a kid. Damn, you was a baby. Cool it. Why we talking about Golden Gloves? Al voice. I won Nationals the next year, and everything else it was to win. Everything else there was to win besides the Olympics, obviously. And he was basically responding to, I've been nothing but respectful to you, dude, by Ortiz. And Ortiz Jr. probably had it just sent to him. Probably had that information. Hey, dude, they're talking shit about you. They're calling you a cry little baby, this is what he said. Don't be throwing fake jabs at me. I've been nothing but respectful to you. Errol Spence might have to change your ring name to The Lie after this one. That's what he said. But like I said, it was probably brought to him on some random shit. You know what I mean? And so he probably just knee-jerked it. You know what I mean? Here's a Breadman. And this is Random Thoughts, this tweet. This is boxing Twitter. I like this idea. And we kind of do that on the boxing year-end awards anyway. But he said, here's Random Thoughts. Performance of the year and performance of the decade should be an official award recognized by Ring Magazine and BWAA. Some fighters like Whitaker, Roy Jones, Mayweather, they won't be in many just crazy great fights like competitive because they're so dominant. But you should still get a performance of the year. And I agree with that. There are some guys that are so dominant that, they're not going to be in fights of the years. But shouldn't you, for that virtuoso performance, that whitewashing performance where it's a 50-50 fight or it's a closely, 60-40 in the books, whatever. People are pumped for it. It draws a lot of attention or not, whatever. And then someone goes out there and just puts on a display of skills. And maybe you get fight of the year, but fighter, I should say, of the year, potentially. I don't know. But sometimes that happens. Sometimes it doesn't. Matters what your other fight is sometimes. But that's a good point by Breadman. There should be a performance of the year, like an event of the year. You know what I mean? So it's kind of interesting. This is a Canelo fanboy, and I'll give him credit. Well, this one dude said Canelo fanboy something like he was an actual fanboy. But the boxing Twitter thing was Roy Jones Jr. versus Saul Canelo Alvarez. Who you got and why? And a lot of people went right to, dude, Roy Jones is old. Nah, dude, we're talking about prime for prime, dude. So we're talking about basically Canelo now against Roy Jones Jr. in his prime. And, 60, 68, 75, they could both make 60. Well, we think Canelo could still make 60. But here's what this fucking guy said. George J.J., Mexican King 4 is what it is. So this must have been his fourth account he went through. Oh, no, maybe at Mexican King actually was taken. So this is what his first response. Canelo's defense would be a nightmare for Roy Jones. He would dog walk Jones, landing body shots and slowing Roy Jones down. Roy Jones' chin is a Mir Khan level, so he probably gets stopped late rounds. And remember, the only time Roy Jones' chin looks suspect is when he went up to heavyweight, put on a bunch of weight, and then dropped down and got stung twice in a row. He wasn't just getting, to say he had the Mir Khan chin is ridiculous, dude. But yeah, he dog walk him. This guy goes on to say, Roy Jones' technique is awful, and he has a glass chin, which neither of them, technique, when you say the technique, you mean fundamentals, not technique. Because everybody has their own technique. In Roy Jones, although we see it, we're seeing it less now. Now we're seeing the young fighter shoulder roll, right? Or like Andre Berto coming out in the fight just randomly trying to do the shoulder roll. You know what I mean? Oh, I worked out in camp. I'm going to have it down. And why I'm bringing this up because Roy Jones, hands down, we see that a lot more after him, post Roy Jones. We don't see it as much, but we see it more than we had before Roy Jones. He had his own style, and that's why I think Floyd Mayweather and Pernell Whitaker are better than Roy Jones because of once he got older, his skills, he got slower like everybody. And, yeah, his fundamentals were not as good as defense. I agree with that, but when he says Roy Jones' technique was awful and he had a glass chin, he didn't have a glass chin just because he got, knocked out that way. It doesn't mean you have a glass chin, dude. He went so long without having a glass chin, and then he got caught. You have enough fights, you're going to get knocked out like that in the weight, whatever. But to sit there and say his technique was awful. Well, dude, he relied on athleticism to beat boxers during his career. I agree with that, but when he was in his prime, remember, we're talking prime for prime, dude. So he had the head speed and the upper body movement to get out of there. But never fought someone as good as Canelo with the granite chin. Okay, so when Canelo had Cotto, when Canelo should have been a knockdown, was hurt bad against Cotto's brother. Was it Jose Cotto, I think? Is it Jose Abner Cotto? What was that? I kind of forgot, but he's talking about, so he got stole on. Like, okay, well, let's go look at those fights with Mayweather. Let's go look at those fights with Erislandy Lara. He hasn't proven he can cut off the ring against a great outside fighter, which Roy Jones is. But Roy Jones' technique is awful, even though he came up with his own technique, basically. And he's got a glass chin. He relied on athleticism, but you'd have that athleticism, right? So this guy goes on further. This is fucking crazy. Tony, and then he said, yeah, but people started bringing up James Toney. He basically threw Tony out the. Tony lacked discipline, was overrated and beat a bunch of bumps. His biggest win was a massive washed-up old man Holyfield in a wheelchair. Lacking discipline in the ring. Dude, he's about to fight Canelo. You think he's going to come out of shape to fight Canelo? Now, if you're talking about technique, defensively, total difference. Total difference. Completely difference. Roy Jones' chin is weak as fuck. Same guy. Canelo will land on him, and he's man down. Canelo is a real Mexican warrior with a granite chin. He will eat all Roy Jones punches, who, by the way, had crazy speed and power at 160. And move forward, landing brutal body shots, then a massive right hook, Kovalev KO style. Dog walk him in his prime. And then this dude brought up Michael Nunn, Prince Charles Williams, Tim Littles, Holyfield, Iran Barkley, Reggie Johnson. Come on. And he goes, those guys were horn level at best. Holyfield was washed up as fuck. That's great. I understand. But this motherfucker just said Canelo would dog walk Roy Jones in his prime. Here's a totally off-base dude that just doesn't want the lockdown to happen. It has nothing to do with the boxing. We lost 6 million people during the Holocaust. Did we shut down our economy then? Of course not. This is pure insanity. First of all, when he says we lost, we didn't kill 6 million people during that time period. That was in Germany and other countries. Did we shut down our economy then? Well, parts of it, actually, when we went into World War II, the Ford company started making tanks and airplanes. So, yeah, we actually did shut down part of our economy. But to sit there and relate just an evil tragedy that happened to Jewish people in Germany and in and around there, they didn't just all die in Germany. They died, unfortunately, in a lot of places there. But to sit there and say that shit is just on a different – come on, dude. Here's a real quick Ryan Garcia. Beating Gervonta Davis will turn me into Muhammad Ali, like with Liston. I had to get that one in. Come on, dude. Come on, dog. Let's get down to business, dude. Come on, dude. Let's be honest. Okay, I'm going to shut it down here in a second. I'm just finding some more boxing Twitter that just will have you all shook up. Well, you actually did have Lady Cecilia going back and forth with Clarissa Shields. That's an ongoing beef on boxing Twitter. Basically, Cecilia is like, hey, Showtime came with the offer, but Matchroom and DAZN, they came with much better offers, and I could fight Katie Taylor and Serrano. Yada, yada, yada. I forgot to mention Dana White, over a 2-year period, Dana White's getting extorted. Over a 2-year period, Dana White paid a stripper in Brazil around $200,000 for dances and sex. She made a sex tape, and her boyfriend tried to extort $200,000 from White for the sex tape. The FBI got involved, kept White's name a secret, just like the Oscar thing when he got exploited. Then White allegedly offered the man $450,000 to plead guilty so that White's name wouldn't become public in the trial. The guy pled guilty. Now he's suing White for the $450,000 he didn't receive. So now White's name is public, and he could be out of more than $200,000. Now this is, an ongoing speculative. This is all potentially, I don't know, we'll see, allegedly. Okay? So there you go. There you go. All right? So there you go. It's kind of some weird stuff there. Oh, here's this other dude. I don't even know who he's cheering for. He must be Team Ugas, which I love Ugas, actually. I really like Ugas. Ugas versus Spence, low key, is the best fight at 147. Oh, you know, he's tagged to him, Ugas, so he's trying to get like a retweet. The best, low key, the best fight is Ugas and Spence. It's not Crawford and Spence. It's Ugas. And no disrespect for Ugas, that's a legitimate, what will probably turn into being a mandatory. That's legitimate, super legitimate, no doubt about it. Because you know he fought Spence real tight. He fought Spence super tight. So, oh, here's our guy. Did I say this one, Rick Glazier? Because of coronavirus, my wife and I will not be eating Chinese food until the epidemic is straightened out. It's not the fear, but we all need to penalize Chinese everywhere, the Chinese everywhere for the outbreak. So you're going to get people that live here that happen to be Chinese, whether they were, you know, immigrated here or they were born and raised here or they immigrated and had kids here. You're gonna blame Chinese people for the virus here even. Obviously Chinese people there, it's not their fault. The government hit it and blah, blah, blah. But come on, dog. He said, remember this tweet? A local Chinese food delivery spot just called me and said in broken English, had to say that, right? You know, or, oh my God. This is who a lot of people have on their shows for information about pay-per-view numbers, which is bullshit. Glazier. Remember this tweet. And he's talking about the tweet I read before. And I'm sorry, all Asians across the world, people from China, Chinese American, anyone of this extent, but especially obviously Chinese people, because we're talking about them. I'm just reading this because this guy's a degenerate, okay? Chinese food, so this local spot calls, and he had to put broken English like a fucking degenerate. You no order lately. You all right? And so this place is saying, hey, you good, dude? Because, you know, Glazier's not young. He ordered this spot a lot. Why would you? It's a local business. I thought you were all American Trump guy. It's an American business, dude. It's not a business from China. It's an American business. These people are calling you to say, are you okay? It's been a while. He must have had like a normal week spot, you know, where he delivered or went there or whatever. He said, F you in Chinese food. Yes, I continue to penalize anything associated with the word China for lying to the world. This is your Rick Glazier, guys. Are you kidding me? Are you like, and of course he's not kidding because I know this freaking, you know, these degenerates. I don't know him personally. I'm saying in general, dude. Like, are you really? And by the way, shouts out, thoughts and prayers go out to Anthony Yard, dude. You know, he lost his grandmother. And didn't he also lose his like father-in-law or something like that, man? Jeez. That's wow. That's got to be rough. But Glazier, you get no pass for the Glazier, dude. So I'm independent. I'm a progressive. I'm after facts. I'm after solutions. I'm not Democrat. I'm not Republican. But this lady who lives in St. Louis Park was talking about Democrats here in Minneapolis for closing the beaches. So the beaches, so Minnesota has a ton of lakes. It's like 13,000 lakes. The license plate literally says like land of 10,000 lakes, right? Yada, yada, yada. We got a lot of lakes, not just in the outskirts, not up north where there's like 18 chain lakes and like Upper Whitefish is like, you know, 200 feet deep. We got a lot of water around here. That's why there's a lot of Scandinavians in Swedes, because like in Sweden, for instance, they have like over 70,000 lakes there. It's a huge landmass, much bigger than Minnesota. Long story short, they closed the beaches down because people are at these lakes. They're city lakes. You know, it's right in Minneapolis. They have 4 major lakes and a bunch of other lakes. We like our freaking lakes up here, okay? And people are going around them, walking around, running, biking, whatever. It's cool. We enjoy it. We got like 3 months of summer. We're going to fucking enjoy that shit. We're like second in out, biking as far as bike-friendly cities. You can take a bike from here to 50 miles away in Stillwater. Yada, yada, yada. We like outdoors because of our winters. We got to get the fuck out. You know what I mean? But people are going around these lakes, and they're not going like single file military style. They're taking up the whole lane. So when you walk and you're trying to keep 6 feet away or running or biking, you got to like move off of the lane. And in some places you got to stop and let them go by. And, since a lot of college age teenagers, and it's families too, literally in the parking lot, you'll roll up in the parking lot to like a public park, right? And the parking lot will be jam-packed, and there'll be like 10 people standing around each other, right by each other talking. And even in the neighborhood, you'll see, families talking to other families right on top of each other. Anyway, I'm not trying to make it political, but this lady who, by the way, doesn't live in Minneapolis, doesn't pay property tax to Minneapolis. She lives in St. Louis Park, a bordering city. And they closed the beaches because they want to send a message to people. Like, hey, when this shit gets hot, because it got to like 60-something today. Basically, when it gets hot, don't be on those beaches, dude. And Minnesota is a type that it'll jump up to 81 degrees, and it'll drop like 38 degrees the next 30 hours. And literally, there's times where there's sleet, it'll be raining, gets so cold overnight. And my hiccups are coming back. Sorry for these pauses. It'll rain overnight, turn into sleet, snow, and by the next day it melts. And so that's just how it is. They also have to start hiring. This is the time of the season in the spring that they hire for lifeguards and people that are going to work at these parks. And when I say parks, I mean like in and around the areas, not just lifeguard, but there's a lot of stuff. People work for the city at these beaches and lakes. And so they have to let the people know, hey, you don't have a summer job right now. We can't guarantee you a summer job. We're not going to do that. So this is what she tweeted. Was it necessary for Minneapolis to close the beaches for the summer in early April? Much can unfold. Change transpires between now and then. And when that change happens, guess what? You undo the ban on beaches, She obviously doesn't go to these city beaches because I've been there plenty. And these fucking kids and families are overrunning the paths and everything. It'd be different if they're single file, but you literally at places I can't go now. Like I'll go out to go get some exercise and be like, I'm going to be all up on people here. The Democrats have turned coronavirus into an excuse for extreme communist control. Wake up, people. Oh, boy. Come on, dog. So it's communist control because of why? Because he shut down the beaches? Because and she's, by the way, she's like one of the GOP, the Republicans, something to do with I don't know if it's just the Minnesota GOP party that she's, if she helps that or if it's St. Louis Park, I don't know. But it's degenerate. It's like, dude, come on. Some of these tweets, I had to kind of get that out of the way because it's like, ugh. Oh, by the way, RIP to the Boxing Monthly. Big shouts out to the British fans, UK fans in general. The British boxing publication, Boxing Monthly, unfortunately went under. And, that sucks, man. That really does suck. I feel bad for him. No doubt about it. I definitely feel bad for them. That sucks, man. That really sucks. Oh, here's some news I forgot. What's that? Fitzgerald, the fighter Fitzgerald, was it Scott Fitzgerald, has been charged with 3 counts of common assault and 1 count of witness intimidation. It's believed he assaulted 2 women, ages 21 and 42, and a man, age 23. There was a picture, I don't know if it's real or not, but with a girl that I don't know if it was like her grandfather or her dad or something, and she was like, hey, they got beat basically, and there was like a bloody nose. I don't know if it was real or not, though. It was a little funky on that one. All right, one more boxing Twitter, and then I'm going to shut this puppy down. I got to get a good one. I wasn't planning on doing much longer of a segment, although that Canelo Roy Jones one was pretty good. And I love Canelo. I think he's number one pound for pound right now based off his resume, his improvement. Like, I love it. I love it. Got to get a good one here. Sorry for the pause here, guys. I'm sure at the end of it, some people have already fallen off anyway. God dang it. Okay. I actually just I dropped this, so it totally backfired on me. And so I got to go back over it. Damn it. All right, so forget it. I'm sorry. I don't have it. I don't have it. Oh, did I mention this last week? I think I did about Japan. Early to mid-May is what they're pushing back. I've heard late May now, though. And actually, Japan has had that second wave. Yeah, that second wave. So they're actually calming down some of their sports leagues and stuff right now. They're like, hold on, dude, we can't have this thing come back at us, dude. We cannot have this thing come. I think that's smart, but we'll see. Yeah, I'm sorry. Oh, you know what? I meant to clear this up. Somebody had a question. I forgot. I had this written down, and I just realized it. So, you know, the whole DAZN being paid by DAZN shit, you know, we know it. We knew it was true before, so my sources were strong on that one, and because it was obvious. And also, DAZN did reach out to me on some ad revenue, blah, blah, blah. But that was a vague reach out, whatever. And you could see some podcasts were like hyping up DAZN way more than they had previously after, you know. They were basically – there's a podcast that I believe DAZN funded that came out of nowhere, and the person that runs it is not who he says he claims to be. Not his name, but his position at a company in the past. I'll leave it at that. So, you know how there's influencers, right? Obviously. Instagram influencers, yada, yada, yada. But you see a lot of sports in, like, full-time, like Coppinger. You know, Ring TV, Ring Magazine, that has – DAZN gave them money. They have links in there. They have links to, like, even a different publication. But they gave them money. And obviously tied with Golden Boy, they gave them a bunch of money along with Canelo. I'm not surprised about that. DAZN gave the Athletic money, and pretty soon you saw like these graphic, these like little graphics of a fight. I remember, I think I tweeted it or retweeted it with the Jesse Vargas and Mikey Garcia fight, and how it wasn't just I'm pumped for this fight that's going to be dope. It was like a breakdown of what the fight means, along with an image tweeted out. It was like, it wasn't an image of them going nose to nose. It was actually the poster, in a sense, that image. So it was kind of like, damn, they're really going over the top. But I know that DAZN gave the Athletic, the boxing, Athletic, money. And you could tell, dude, because now all of a sudden, like, Coppinger's talking about fuck pay-per-view and out of nowhere. And he also said this shit. He said, there's got to be a way where they could have gotten Wilder and Fury on regular TV. I want it to happen, but we found out with the PBC that the ad revenue is not there, even for guys making a couple mil a piece, let alone two guys that had like minimum guarantees of 20 mil or whatever. And so he literally said that on his podcast. So he's pumping up DAZN, but he's also shitting on Wilder and Fury, ESPN and Fox, and PBC, the Top Rank. He's saying there has to be a way that they could have got that on regular TV. Something he'd never say in the past. Something I didn't hear him say with, Canelo and Liam Smith on pay-per-view. Or, what's another shitty pay-per-view? I mean, like Berto and fucking Mayweather. Just stupid shit. But I bring this up because there is a DAZN affiliate program, and it makes sense to do this stuff as far as like to celebs. That's why you'll have the same message. It's almost like a copy-paste message out there. And they used it on the Wilder Fury pay-per-view and the Wilder Fury Ortiz, or the Wilder Ortiz fight too. And instead of saying, I'm just getting more bang for my buck from DAZN right now, it's not saying, well, I wouldn't buy that, but I'd buy this. It's not. That's not their job to tell you to do that. They're just showing you, okay, hey, I'm getting I'm getting a bang for my buck. And some of these same people weren't pumped for Wilder Fury, like on their Twitter, I'm saying. But, why not have and actually Johnny Manziel was part of it. Why not have Odell Beckham? Why not have these guys affiliated to where all they got to do is tweet? They got to tweet something, and they're influencers. So I get paying those guys. But there's a DAZN affiliate program that you can literally sign up for. It's a real thing. Earn commission connecting sports fans to our platform. This is a real thing. So when people say, well, I didn't get any ad money, I'm not getting paid by them. Yeah, but you are getting potentially paid, or maybe you're getting free DAZN or whatever. Just because you didn't get the traditional ad money where you talk through an ad, right? Or you didn't get a link of a free month, or hey, sign up DAZN here or whatever, right? This is literally a thing. It's available. You can look this up. Earn commission connecting sports fans to our platform. Refer new customers. Send visits to DAZN using your unique track linking. Track performance. View clicks and conversations and commission in real time. Get paid. Receive payment every month for approved conversations. I screenshotted it and it cut off, so I couldn't really read all the back end of that. But basically, you get approved. I think it says conversations. Yeah, like online. You know what I mean? So this is the DAZN affiliate program. This is a real thing. Google it. Just Google it, dude. This is a real thing. A lot of people gave me stick, and that's okay. I was going to say I deserve it, not on this one. But that's okay. That's part of doing this shit. When you put your opinion out there, you're going to get shtick for it. I'm fine with that. I don't give a shit. I don't do all the clickbait shit. But, dude, you don't have to have them send you $5,000 or $1,000 a month or $10,000 all at once or whatever to say I'm going to run your ad for this, Because they email me, we want to go back and forth. They want to know your downloads. They want to know your shit, all that stuff. And then they tell you the podcast budget. This is what we have. And I talked to some people behind the scenes, not at DAZN, but other podcasts to see if they had been offered and what their budget, and, basically like talk behind the scenes so we know if someone's fucking you or not, whatever. And so they put their feelers out to a variety of podcasts. And then all of a sudden, I saw all these people pro DAZN before DAZN had popped off. Remember, it took till late April 2019 for it to pop off. I'm talking about the 6 months before that, 7 months before that, when the product wasn't good. It was very hit or miss. It was cool to get Povetkin. Like I mentioned, there were some good fights. I liked, Bellew, and just Usyk Bellew was interesting to me. We didn't have to pay for it on pay-per-view like they did over in the UK, but it's discounted, as we know. But I'm talking about influencers when they weren't even popping yet. I mean, they would list, all the pay-per-views in the next 6 months. 3 by the PBC and 1 by Top Rank, right? And then say, well, for this amount of money, I get a whole year. And they literally would – it's one thing to say it, but they kept listing all these over and over again. It's one thing to say, hey, I'm getting bang for my buck. This is dope. Constantly as a media member, push people towards this and say fuck that when they weren't saying fuck that. They weren't saying fuck pay-per-view. They weren't saying forget pay-per-view. Some of these were legit fights with Spence and Garcia. Spence and Garcia was a pound-for-pound matchup, but obviously in two undefeated guys, two high-level guys, that's what drew attention, you know, for fans. But obviously it was a mismatch in the ring. But Pacquiao-Thurman, you know, Spence Porter, these are good fights. Wilder-Fury 1, Wilder-Fury 2. These are legitimate pay-per-view fights. And a lot of them had good undercards. I'm not saying Wilder-Fury's did. Neither of those did. But, you know, when you look at the run, the Pacquiao-Broner, I didn't like that main event. Pacquiao's a pay-per-view fighter. What are you going to do? I didn't like that main event. But they hooked it up on the undercard. Not only that, if you're going to put in Spence and Porter and Pacquiao and Thurman, were great undercards on paper and in the ring mostly. And even Wilder-Ortiz, that pay-per-view actually turned out to be a very entertaining pay-per-view. So that's like 3 in a row. But what they don't say, if you're going to go out of your way, the Monteros, the Mannixes, the guy, some of them are part-time, some of them are full-time, and they're just looking for extra income. I get it. It's not easy. I get it. I call myself a part-time media. I don't make full money off this being a media member to make a living. I don't. I straight up say it. But if you're going to put all the price points and say, for $100, I get this the whole year, 100 fights or whatever. I get Canelo and, you know, all that great, and it is awesome. But then you're going to say, but look, you got to pay $75 for this shit. But then not to put the $20 or $25 option for the movie theater is bullshit. Because once again, you're not telling the whole story. Now I know, you know, that there are places, especially outside of metro areas, but places in general who are in smaller size cities that even, you know, smaller size cities. I actually talked to Wood about this. I think he's in and around Dayton, I believe, and or in Ohio someplace. I think it's Dayton. But either way, he said, you know, they did it and then not enough people came, so they didn't do it anymore. And I respect that. I agree with that. You know, or not agree, but that's fair. But remember, there's parts of this country where internet sucks, and it'd be useless to have DAZN on a live broadcast, just like ESPN Plus live broadcast. Live streaming cable, that's why I preference it. Some places live streaming events just don't work. They constantly freeze. You can have the best internet, and sometimes you have issues. So if you're going to go out of your way to list the pay-per-views for Top Rank and PBC, but you didn't do this in the past. You know, we didn't hear, oh, hey, it's only $12 for Showtime, and look at they're giving in CBS free. They're giving us the best fights from 2016 to 2018. That 3-year stretch, Showtime put out the best product. Period, point blank. It's not up for debate. And some of them they put on CBS. And remember, they did have 4 or 5 cards that some of them were good, some were mediocre, whatever, during the afternoon on Sundays and Saturdays sometimes. That's all part of that package of the PBC when they came out. But my point is, if you weren't saying, don't buy any of these pay-per-views, even if they're legit, just go to Showtime, dude. It's only $12 with your cable package. If you were, I didn't see those tweets from those same people. And that's the thing. This pay-per-view thing came with DAZN. Fuck pay-per-view came with DAZN influence in it. And then so they influenced it majorly with money and just, you know, grip on social media. And it's the anti-PBC. So people weren't complaining about good fights on pay-per-view. You know what people were complaining about is stay busy bullshit, Mayweather Guerrero. And then I think that one had like Broner and Khan on the undercard. but they weren't against tough fights. They were just names. It's kind of like how Eddie Hearn, big shouts out to Eddie Hearn for the most part, right? Of course, big shouts out to the UK. But sometimes he'll be like, oh, and Joshua Parker's on the card, and he'll be fighting, whatever. He'll just say the names, but they're not fighting. Kell Brook's on there. Yeah, who's he fighting, though? You know what I mean? So if you were my point is, if you're going to name prices, be honest about it then. If you're just saying, hey, I care about the boxing fans, well, if you care about the boxing fans so much, why don't you tell them about a cheaper option and go to the movie theaters for those who can? Because like I said, yeah, there's plenty of places, outside the city and suburbs that will not have a theater, that it may not even have a theater in their state that carries these fights. They may be like Wood said, how they had one, it didn't do good, so they don't have them there anymore. That may be the case. But you can't get DAZN and live stream it everywhere in the country. You can get it, but it's not going to be good. It's going to be shitty. I have family members, friends. My sister and all my nieces and nephews, they live out in the outskirts. They live in an area where it's by a chain of lakes, so there's money, property tax, right? So they actually have had, they've actually put in, they've had shit there. I'm trying to think of the fucking word for some odd reason. I'm just losing it. But they literally have the companies come out, and now they have better internet out there than they used to. But this just happened, and it was only because certain people that fly into the Brainerd, smaller airport, they fly in private, and they go to their big-ass house on the lake. They're like, nah, we need better internet. We don't have to fuck. We want put this shit in because we're actually going to, open a headquarters here, that type of thing. But there's a lot of places in Minnesota, and I know friends that literally say their fucking internet sucks, and a couple of them are boxing fans, and they wait on DAZN to watch it, not live. And it still sucks. Some of them just wait for the thing to be done and then watch it online like we did years ago. I'm just saying, if you're looking out for the boxing fan, first of all, why weren't you looking out for the boxing fan with Pacquiao against Rios or Pacquiao against Algieri, or like I said, Canelo against Liam Smith? Why weren't you looking out for the pay-per-view fans then? Now you are. Huh. Weird. So you don't even have to be paid directly ad money per se from them. You can just sign up to be a DAZN tweeter. And that's what's going on. All right, I kind of got lost there. I'm going to shut this down. We'll be back next week. I got to do first quarter progress report review just to see where we're at some point. Maybe I'll do that next week. I do have some really funny Chris Mannix tweets that'll just make you go, oh, wow, that is so bullshit. And it's not just – we're not talking Andre Charlo. I'm not saying that. I have some shows lined up, okay? So we're good. We're good. I'm gonna deliver new content. I am good. Like I said, I am gonna deliver some interviews as well over the next month or two. Like I mentioned earlier in the show, for those who popped in a little later on their phone right now, years ago we were an interview format, whereas we talk boxing, of course, and fight news, but we were pretty heavy interviews. So sometimes you'd have 3 in a 3-hour show, sometimes 2, sometimes one in-depth one on a busy fight weekend. And a lot of that was the reason, because a chunk of years ago, before all these TV deals and investors and all that, there'd be like 3-week gaps before the next big fight on Showtime or HBO. And it'd be Friday night fights and all that, you know what I mean? So you'd have to fill some content. And so interviews were a big thing with that. So that's partially the reason why I can bring you new content and topics right now, because I haven't relied on interviews. But yeah, you can go archive from Bernard Hopkins to Mauricio Herrera or Solomon. Well, Herrera too. We had Herrera on plenty. Mikey Garcia. We had exclusive to the podcast world, Floyd Mayweather, that interview that Carcino hooked us up. He, of course, had it on Boxing Socialist and on Carcino for Life first. Then, we were the first one to have that on a podcast. I mean, a variety. We had Mickey Ward back in the day talking about his movie. Beeb at the time had to go through Paramount. I mean, we've had some really, really great interviews. We had Lou DiBella and Paulie Malignaggi on back-to-back interviews that I think it was back-to-back weeks. But when DiBella, we kind of got into Paulie Malignaggi a little bit, and DiBella went off on him. Paulie, we got a hold of Paulie so he could get his rant off too. It's pretty funny. So, and like I said, if you guys want me to play, like have an episode where it's a throwback show with an interview, or maybe like a throwback post-fight. Like I was thinking of, me and Ness used to host the post-fight for a little time. And we did Pacquiao and Marquez 4, and me and Ness could talk our asses off, right? And we were almost, we were speechless after that. Like, holy shit, that just happened, that crazy knockout. So maybe I'll have a show where I have an interview, featured from the throwback, and that'll be part of the show. Or maybe I'll just put out a separate show, and it's just that, to give you guys some content that maybe you haven't heard it in a long time. Maybe you haven't. We have a Manuel Stewart interview. We have some interviews back in the day that were really interesting. We were the first ones to talk to Andre Durrell after that Abraham fight, when he didn't want to talk to anybody. We had somebody that helped us broker that interview when he hadn't talked to anybody. We have that one on the book. So feel free to go back and listen to those, archives. I mean, people do already, but, in the time of when you're looking for content, maybe you only listen to the show the last 6 months. Maybe it's the last couple of years. Maybe you just haven't heard those interviews, so those are fresh to you. But like I said, contact me if that's something you guys want for me to bring back some old school interviews. So that's maybe like I said, a segment during a show, and I'll give you live content, like new, fresher content, or I just put that out and still do my show. So I have numerous topics that can last an hour podcast, a 2-hour podcast, something longer, something 45 minutes. Like I said, I have plenty of content, so keep coming back. If you want topics that mean something to right now going on in boxing, whether it's this UFC thing or that whatever. I mean, I literally have a list of stuff right now I'm looking at that I'm going to do shows over the next month. And these are segments or full shows. And I haven't even dipped into interviews yet. So stay with me. Like I said, I really appreciate you guys during this. And obviously, for the boxing folks, I still put out basketball and football content. We will do an NFL draft preview, but obviously it has a Vikings tie to it, so maybe that's not something you want to listen to. Maybe it is. Either way, I am out. I really appreciate, like I said, the listenerships, and let's get this thing, get through this thing together. Get there through together. We're gonna make it through this, as we know. I'm gonna shut this thing down. You guys do what you got to do. Be safe as possible. I understand it's trying times, and just beyond the listenership that I appreciate everybody working at the grocery stores, the liquor stores, at the hospitals, who are really coming in contact with people that actually knowingly have it. Anybody that has to still grind and they're afraid at work and they have these feelings like, oh, do I have it? I'm not sure. Just the pressure of, well, shit, I have it. They say it's a free test now. Okay, can I get the test for free? If I'm sick, do I got to stay there? Is the treatment going to cost me $20,000? Or is that going to be taken care of? Is that going to be a lot of yellow tape? There's a lot of shit going on. And, that's where a lot of my thoughts are out there. And like I said, I just want to be a distraction. And I'm not out here, woe is me, because I'm unemployed. at all. I have money coming in through the state. In Minnesota, I'm okay. So I'm not out here saying woe is me at all. It's really, my thought is with all the people that are struggling right now, that are sick right now, that are dealing with the sick, that are having to work longer hours, work less hours, and not get, getting laid off and don't know where their industry's going. I feel for you. Either way, I'm going to be back. We'll be back actually tomorrow with the show. And actually, it's going to be about KG. Because KG just, they did that official. Well, they didn't do the official Hall of Fame thing. There's a bunch of people getting in, but the highlights of the class, obviously, from a male perspective and a player perspective is, Kobe, KG, and Duncan. And so we're going to talk a little KG tomorrow, unless some Vikings news just, some kind of crazy news. Anyway, I'm talking too long. Peace out. You guys take it easy. Be safe. Peace.
Once you become the world champion, I believe that you feel you have the upper hand. So now, as you fight, let's say you fight 4 or 5 years of straight survival, the bullshit, the holdback, and when you become the world champion, you're like, you know what, I made it. Now I'm going to show you it's business. So I'm going to get every dollar worth of what I deserve.